I came home after school, and the entire house was empty. No phone call, no note. Just a scribbled piece of paper left on the kitchen table. You'll figure it out. I was 17, and from that moment on, I no longer had a family. Chapter 1. The day they left. When my family moved out, they took with them even the feeling that I ever belonged. I got home around 9 p.m. that night, exhausted after a shift at the pizza place near school. I remember laughing to myself when I saw a customer's burnt loaf of bread, thinking life's kind of burning me too. Little did I know, that joke was the most accurate prophecy I'd ever make. I opened the door. Silence. No loud cartoons from my little brother's room. No clacking keyboard from dad. Not even the scent of mom's signature fabric softener. I stepped inside, or rather into the empty shell of what used to be my home. Everything was gone. Empty closets. Unmade beds like no one had ever slept in them. Picture frames removed, leaving behind rusty hook marks on the walls. I opened the fridge, only a smear of water inside, and a folded note placed carefully on the egg shelf. The scrawled, hurried writing read, "You'll figure it out." 3 words. No name. No goodbye. No emotion. I laughed. Not the happy kind, the kind of laugh someone lets out after realizing their family didn't go to the supermarket, didn't go back to the countryside. They moved out for good without a single word. I ran out to the front yard, looked around, no cars, no neighbors waving, no one to explain what the hell just happened. I pulled out my phone, called mom, busy, called dad, turned off, called my sister, the subscriber you have dialed is not available. Then I found the last message from mom sent 6 hours ago. Don't forget to lock the door when you get home. Lock it for who they'd moved away. Yet they still had the courtesy to remind me to lock up. How thoughtful, right? I didn't cry. I laughed bitterly, like I was the main character in some dark comedy my family had written and directed. No luggage left for me, no letter, no new address, no one waiting for me. That night, I slept on the living room floor where the sofa used to be the one mom always sat on to knit. No pillow, no blanket, just me and the harsh reality I had been abandoned by my own family. The next morning, I walked to school with dark circles under my eyes and an empty stomach. A teacher asked if I was okay. I said, just didn't sleep much. I couldn't tell the truth. Who would believe a 17-year-old got ditched by her entire family for no reason? They'd think I was exaggerating or attention seeking. The truth, as I would soon learn, is not always worth telling because people don't always want to understand. A few weeks later, I went back to the house, only to find the locks had been changed. The new tenants were a middle-aged couple. They said the last tenants paid rent 6 months in advance, told us they wouldn't be coming back. I stood in front of the door that used to be mine, now just another stranger's apartment. No sign I ever lived there, ever belonged. I realized if there's a place to call home, it had already left me long before I knew I needed it. And that was the day I lost my family and began life as an invisible person. No papers, no guardian, no place to fall back on if I broke. I didn't die, but from that day on, I stopped believing that blood always means belonging. The word family after that to me, sir, was just an empty sound. Chapter 2. The Tiny Room and the 10,000 Dong Baguette. 17 years old. No home, no parents, no one waiting for me. Just a stale baguette and a room with bare, unpainted walls. I don't even remember how I survived those first few weeks. I rented a tiny room, and I mean tiny. Just enough space for a paper-thin single mattress, a rickety old fan that sounded like a helicopter, and a plastic table I found near a student dorm dumpster down the street. The landlady was a cranky old woman. When I asked to rent the place, she looked me up and down and asked, "No parents to vouch for you?" I smiled. "No, but I've got a deposit, and I know how to lock the door." That deposit was made up of crumpled bills I'd saved from working part-time at the pizza shop all through 11th grade. At the time, I hadn't yet realized savings can't buy you a sense of safety. All it does is rent you a little more time. to keep getting hurt. Every morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. to walk to school. During recess, I'd sit behind the library studying while biting into a 10,000 dong baguette, the cheapest thing I could afford. The street vendor knew me well. She never asked anything, but whenever I came by, she'd always pick the biggest baguette packed with the most pâté. One day I asked her, "Why are you so kind to me?" She just smiled and said, quietly, "I was abandoned too. At your age. In class, I still did well. People thought I was just that weird loner who liked sitting by herself. No one knew I was living a life where I had to bathe with cold water at night, wait for everyone to fall asleep before quietly heading downstairs to wash dishes. At one point, I thought I'd try to find my family. I Googled their names. I called the old numbers, but they vanished as if they had never existed. My mom's Facebook was deleted, phone numbers deactivated, the old household registry no longer had anyone listed. They didn't just move, they erased me, like I was a system error that needed to be deleted. There was a night I got a high fever. I lay curled up on the thin mattress, shivering from cold and pain. I reached for my phone, was about to call mom, and then I stopped. Call for what? Would she even still have my number saved? Or had she blocked it years ago? I stared at the peeling paint on the ceiling. I wished someone, just one person, would ask, "Are you okay, honey?" But no one asked. I got through the fever alone, and I understood something: I didn't need anyone's pity. All I needed was for them not to come back. Once I was okay, I started working 3 jobs: school in the morning, work in the afternoon, dishwashing at night. No time left to remember, no energy left to feel. I turned myself into a machine: study, work, sleep, repeat. But every time I bit into that 10,000 dong baguette, I remembered that taste of pâté was the taste of freedom, the taste of loneliness, and the taste of survival. And I swore to myself, if I ever made it, I would never let anyone come back and take it away from me, especially the ones who once threw me out like trash. Chapter 3: Memories of my family, or more accurately, the people who once claimed to be. I used to believe that family was forever, until they vanished, and I realized some people only love you when you're useful. They say time heals all wounds, and I used to believe that, until I brushed up against my past and realized some wounds don't fade. They just lie dormant, like a landmine waiting to explode when you least expect it. I once had a family, or at least I thought I did. My mother. The woman who always wore pearl bracelets and told me to sit up straight, don't embarrass me in public. She used to say she loved me, but that love came with terms and conditions, like a discount voucher with fine print at the bottom. I had to be skinny, because no man will love a fat girl. I had to get good grades, because this family doesn't raise losers. I had to stay quiet when classmates bullied me, because you need to protect our family's reputation. I wasn't allowed to cry, not allowed to get angry, not allowed to simply be myself. And my dad, a man who only ever spoke to me when he wanted me to stop being annoying. To him, I was noise, an inconvenience, the reason he couldn't boast about having a perfect family. I remember once I failed a math test. He didn't ask why, didn't offer to help. He just looked at me coldly and said, "Just pretend you don't exist." Back then, I thought he was just mad. But now that I think about it, that might have been the most honest thing he ever said to me. I had a younger sister 3 years my junior. She was beautiful, brilliant, and flawless, at least by my mother's standards, which meant I became the unwanted contrast. I was the defective shadow, the stain on an otherwise perfect family portrait. I tried to fix myself. I starved myself to the point of collapsing at school. I wrote the perfect essay so mom would read it, only for her to tear it up saying not emotional enough. I taught myself how to do makeup, how to dress, how to speak, just the way she wanted, but it was never enough. I was a glitch in their program, and they chose the simplest solution: delete the error. Looking back now, I'm no longer angry, just astounded. Astounded that I ever thought they loved me, that I believed my mother's hugs were real, that I felt touched when Dad messaged happy birthday, only to find out later it was a copy-paste message sent to all relatives. After they left, I tried to erase them from my mind, but memory is a traitor. It doesn't delete. It records everything, and sometimes plays it back like a broken radio, like the time I was watching TV alone and there was a scene of a family having dinner together. I burst into tears, not because I missed them, but because I realized I'd never actually had that, yet still felt like I'd lost it, as if it was something I was supposed to have. I didn't have the worst childhood. I had food, clothes, and occasional outings, but I grew up with this voice in my head. If you're not good enough, you don't deserve to be loved. If you're not perfect, you don't belong anywhere. Now, I don't hate them. I don't love them either. I've simply freed myself from the need to understand why they left me. Because if you spend your life searching for answers from people who don't believe you deserve one, you'll drown in their silence. My family isn't dead. They just moved on to a life that no longer included me. Chapter 4, 5 years without a single word. You don't need anyone to grow up. You just need enough reasons not to fall apart. I was 17 when they left me, and I was 22 when I finally stopped dreaming about them coming back. 5 whole years, not a single call. No how are you? No apology. Not even a short message saying, are you okay? I lived each year like I was beating another level in some survival game, except there was no reset button. Year 1, I learned how to hold in tears on the bus. Year 2, I learned how to stand up again after getting cheated out of my wages. Year 3, I learned to love myself when I looked in the mirror and no longer saw the abandoned daughter. I worked every kind of job, dishwashing, waitressing, tutoring. Every time someone asked me, where are your parents? I'd smile lightly, probably off traveling somewhere they didn't share their itinerary. Then I'd change the subject, because no one really wants to hear the real story. I didn't celebrate my birthday. No one came to my graduation. No emergency contact listed if I ever ended up in the hospital. I had a phone, but it only buzzed with bank alerts, work shifts, and scholarship app notifications. In year 4, I got into a prestigious scholarship program, 100% tuition free. I remember holding that acceptance letter in my hand, crying in my tiny room. Not from joy, but because I had no one to share it with. I thought about calling Mom. My hand trembled, but I stopped. Call her for what, if she could ask? Wait, who is this, or worse? Why are you calling in the middle of the night? Some people need their sleep. I set the phone down, and that's when I realized I'm the only person in my life who actually stayed. 5 years. Not one person from my past came back. No one said sorry. No one admitted they did anything wrong. They didn't remove me with anger or shouting. They just silently deleted me like a bad draft. Once I tried sending an email to my mom's old address. Just one sentence. Just wanted to ask, are you doing okay? The email bounced back. Address not found. I smiled, almost like the universe itself was saying, don't waste your time anymore. I started going to the gym, doing yoga. I learned to cook well for myself, bought nice clothes, not needing anyone to compliment me. I moved out of my old rental and put a sign on my new apartment wall. Freedom is when no one can abandon you again. I used to think I'd live the rest of my life without roots, but I realized I don't need roots to grow. I'm a wandering seed, but I still bloom, alone. 5 years without a word. Also taught me this, I don't need them to speak. I've stopped listening. Chapter 5, the day they came back, and I was no longer that same girl. They came back as if nothing had happened, but I wasn't the person they once abandoned anymore. I was 24 when I received the first message from my mother after nearly 7 years. It was short. No apology, no explanation, just 6 words, sweetie, I want to meet. Call me. Call you. I stared at my screen, like my brain needed extra time to compute whether this was even real. I didn't know whether to laugh or get angry. The same person who vanished without a word now sends one message and expects me to come running like a leashed puppy finally called back home. I didn't respond right away. I went to work, Came home, cooked, cleaned. I gave myself 3 days to think. On the third day, I replied with just 2 words. You now know reply. 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from Dad, the man I thought had long been buried somewhere deep inside me. He said, "We thought you'd be fine, but now the family needs you to come back. It's your sister. She had an accident, and your mom isn't well either." Oh, of course. The classic story family returns only when they need you, not when you needed them. I gritted my teeth. Part of me wanted to hang up, but another part was curious, not because I missed them, but because I wanted to see if they still saw me as the invisible daughter they once erased. We arranged to meet at a fancy cafe downtown. I arrived early, wore a sleek black blazer, minimal makeup, hair tied neatly. I wanted them to see I grew up. I made it, without them. They arrived 20 minutes late. When Mom walked in, she looked at me like she was trying to remember the name of someone she once passed by at the market. "You look different." I smiled. "Different? Because I'm no longer asking for lunch money, huh?" No one laughed. They started talking about my sister, about Dad's job troubles, about Mom's recent diagnosis, a benign tumor. I listened, nodded, until Dad looked me straight in the eye and said, "We should reconnect. We're still a family. The past is the past." I stared at him, the same man who once told me, "Just pretend you don't exist." And I replied calmly, "Some things aren't the past. They're scars. And scars don't just disappear." Mom's eyes welled up. She reached out to hold my hand. "I'm sorry. I didn't know you were hurt this badly." I gently pulled my hand away. "You don't have to know. You just have to own it." The meeting ended with thick, suffocating silence. They asked me to visit home. I declined. They said they'd call again. I didn't block them, but I never picked up again. Because the truth is, I'm no longer the girl who cried herself to sleep in a rented room the night they left. I'm a woman who knows no one has the right to re-enter your life after choosing to walk out and never look back. Sort of the dinner invitation and the empty chair in my heart, they invited me home for dinner. I smiled and asked, "Does anyone here even remember I used to live in this house?" About a month after that awkward coffee shop reunion, I got a message from my younger sister, the girl who had always been showered with all the expectations I never got to touch. "Hey sis, Mom wants you to come for dinner. Just a meal. No pressure." I read the message over and over. No pressure. I had spent my entire childhood feeling like excess baggage in that very house. One sideways glance from Mom used to keep me up at night. A family dinner was never a dinner. It was a loyalty test, a stage performance with me in the spotlight waiting to fail. But I agreed to go, not because I forgave them, but because I was curious. I wanted to see how much of that house still felt like family, and how much of it had become a museum of well-decorated lies. I returned. The house looked smaller than I remembered. The rusty gate, paint peeling off the fence, the once white walls now blotched with mossy green, like a mask finally starting to flake. They welcomed me with forced smiles. Dad didn't say much. Mom tried her best to act normal, as if I had just returned from a study abroad trip. "Want some tea? Still like peach tea? Do you still like the caramel flan I used to make?" I smiled. Did she know I hadn't eaten caramel flan in 6 years, because every bite made me nauseous with memories of family? We sat down for dinner. 6 chairs. They seated me in the same one I always had, the one farthest from Mom, the one that never got the chicken drumstick, the one where I used to sit quietly, because if I so much as spilled soup, I'd get scolded. So clumsy. Are you even a girl? Dinner was awkward, silent. My sister tried to liven things up with school stories. Mom kept putting food into my bowl as if trying to undo something. "Eat more, you're too skinny." I smiled. "I've been skinny ever since you left me." Remember, Mom froze. No one said anything after that. I got up to pour myself water, glanced at the display shelf, the one with all the family photos, still the same frame of Dad, Mom, and my sister from that Christmas years ago. No photo of me. I had never existed on that shelf, as if I was just a long-term house guest. I returned to the table, looked straight at Mom. You invited me home for dinner. But does anyone here actually want me at the table? She was stunned. No one answered. I set my chopsticks down. I have to go. Someone's waiting for me. Mom grabbed my hand. Waiting. A boyfriend? I smiled. No. It's me. I promised myself I'd never let anyone shove me back into the role of the daughter begging for forgiveness again. I stepped outside. The night air was cool. My heart was light, as if it had never stepped inside that house. For the first time, I didn't cry when leaving, because I realized the empty chair in my heart was never meant for them to return to. It was for me to sit down and learn how to love myself. Chapter 7, the 2 a.m. text, and my decision not to turn back. They messaged me at 2 a.m. Mom's very sick. Come home. We're still a family. But I didn't go because I remembered, where were they the last time I needed them? The message came at 2:14 a.m. I was fast asleep when my phone buzzed. Mom's in the hospital. Come back. It's urgent. No greeting. No sorry for the hour. Just a command, as if I was still some child expected to jump at every midnight call. I sat up. My heart pounded. Not from worry, but because the past had just yanked me back like a recurring nightmare. 7 years ago, I was curled up in a freezing room, burning with a fever, shaking, dialing my mom's number. No one answered. I remember crying into the phone, waiting, alone. And now, what, they get sick. And I'm expected to forget everything because they suddenly need me. The next morning, I didn't go. I went to work, like usual. Had coffee at lunch. That evening, I sat reading a book in my quiet apartment, a place where no one had ever screamed in my face. You're a disgrace. My sister called. You're really not coming? Mom's asking about you. I answered calmly. Asking about me, like the way she asked if I was still alive for the past 7 years? Silence. Then the line went dead. A week later, I received an invitation. Not a funeral notice. A wedding invitation. Yes. The same sister who had said Mom's sick in the hospital was now sending out wedding invites. The reason Mom wants everyone to be together. It'd be weird if you didn't show up. I laughed, a dry, hollow laugh like dust falling from an old rug. I replied with exactly 6 words. Thanks. I won't be attending. No punctuation, no emojis, no sugarcoating. 3 days later, I received a handwritten letter from my mom. I hadn't seen her handwriting since 6th grade. The writing was shaky, full of missing subjects and scattered punctuation. But there was one line that made me freeze. Even if I was wrong, you can't keep living in resentment. Family's blood, it can't be denied. The colder you are, the more I hurt. I set the letter on the table, exhaled, and quietly asked myself if Mom hurts now because I'm not coming back. Did she ever feel my heart dying a little more each day when she left me behind? That evening, I walked past a souvenir shop. There was a small wooden sign that read, "Not everyone who gives birth to you deserves to be called family." I bought it, took it home, placed it next to my mirror. Every morning when I look at my reflection, I remind myself I'm not heartless. I'm just no longer a prey to manipulation. They can keep playing the victim. As for me, I'll keep playing the lead role in my own life. Chapter 8, The Party Without Me, and the Girl Who Replaced Me in the Family Album. They said the family wasn't complete without me, but then they threw a party, took photos, posted them without me. And standing in the spot I once filled was someone else. A better version. A more obedient shadow. I didn't attend the wedding. though I thought about it many times. Not to give my blessing, but just to look them in the eye and say, "You no longer have the right to call me family." But in the end, I stayed home. Not because I was weak, but because I'd learned something. Sometimes your absence is the strongest form of resistance. Showing up isn't always a victory. Choosing not to be present, that's power. A week after the wedding, I scrolled through Facebook, not to stalk, but out of curiosity. I wanted to see how they had reconstructed their little family universe without me, and I saw it. A family photo. Everyone dressed in white, beaming under the warm glow of the sunset. My parents hand in hand, my sister in a dazzling wedding dress, her groom smug smile, and a girl standing right in the middle in the exact spot I used to stand in the only family photo we ever took 10 years ago. I had to zoom in twice to believe it. It was my uncle's stepdaughter, an 18-year-old girl who had stayed at our house for a few months after her parents split. She was tagged as our wonderful little daughter, our sweet love. I read that line over and over. There wasn't a single word about me. No missing our eldest. No family incomplete without her. Just replacement. 1 minute later, I realized they had deleted all old photos of me. Elementary school pictures, the certificate photo when I won the provincial scholarship, the Tet photo when I was 15 wearing a red owl dye hair and twin braids, gone. No trace that I had ever existed, ever belonged. I turned off my phone, sat still, didn't cry, didn't tremble, just felt an emptiness. Not in my heart, but in my understanding of the word family. Because now I knew I wasn't just abandoned, I was replaced, deliberately, consciously, and without remorse. That night, I pulled out the old handwritten letter from my mom, read the line again. Family's blood, it can't be denied. And I laughed. They had denied me first. They just didn't send a memo. They edited me out. Like I was never in the script to begin with. So I did one last thing. I messaged mom. I saw the photos. That girl, she's much easier to control than I ever was. Wishing you happiness with your new choice. Then I blocked her number. I didn't feel pain anymore. I felt light. Like I had finally dropped an old suitcase musty with moldy memories and hollow love. My family isn't dead. They just did a bit of spring cleaning and threw me out of their bloodline. So I'm sorry, but I'll go on living as if they never existed either. Chapter 9. A Stranger at My Door. And the first time I said, I have no family. He asked, "Where are your parents? Can I say hello to them?" I looked him in the eye and smiled. "I don't have a family, just myself." And for the first time, I didn't feel ashamed saying it. I met him at an art exhibition. He worked in media. I was doing graphic design for a community project. We talked through emails, chatted over Zoom. But that exhibition was the first time we met in person. And maybe it was also the first time I allowed someone unfamiliar to step foot into my so-called safe zone. He was gentle, didn't dig too deep, didn't pity me. We went for walks, drank coffee, talked about books and films more than about who do you live with or what do your parents do? But of course, that question came. Eventually, as it always does. One evening, I invited him over for dinner. As he stood at the door, smiling politely, he asked, "Should I say hi to your parents? Or at least greet them?" I froze, still holding a bowl of fish sauce in my hand. It was a simple question. Polite, but it slid in like a knife against a barely healed scar. I turned to face him. No anger, no embarrassment, just a deep breath. "I don't have a family." He frowned a bit. "What do you mean?" "I mean, there's no one for you to greet. No father, no mother, maybe they're still alive, but to me, they've been dead for a long time." He didn't say a word, didn't ask anything more. And that silence. That very silence made me feel more understood than 1,000 fake words of sympathy ever could. I set the bowl down and gave him the short version, the empty house, the wedding photo without me, the handwritten letter full of tears, but empty of sincerity. He didn't say, "I'm so sorry." He simply placed his hand on mine and said, "Then from now on, you'll have someone who stays." That night, I couldn't sleep, not because of past wounds resurfacing, but because I felt light. For the first time, I said I have no family, and there were no tears, no trembling voice, no shame. I used to think those who gave birth to us were our roots, but I've learned some trees survive because they learn to grow roots from within themselves. I printed a photo, not a family photo, just one of me, standing in the living room smiling wide, holding a book, bare-faced hair, messy. I stuck it on the fridge and wrote a note under it. If this is all I've got, it's enough to call it home. Chapter 10. The new family photo and an ending that doesn't need forgiveness. I used to dream of taking a real family photo. No fake smiles, no pretending, just people who genuinely want to hold my hand and never let go. And I finally got that photo. No blood ties, no begging, and no forgiveness needed to live in peace. On my 30th birthday, I threw a small party. Just a few close friends, some old colleagues, my boyfriend, and a stray cat I had recently adopted. No grand decor, no roses, no fireworks. Just a warm dinner and a simple birthday cake with the words, "To the girl who made it." I remembered how I used to wish that if I ever had a birthday party, Dad would give a toast, Mom would hug me, my sister would post an Instagram story with some cheesy hashtag. None of that happened. But one of my friends placed her hand on my shoulder and smiled. "I once saw you fall asleep at your desk from juggling 3 jobs. I'm proud that you're still here, whole, and brighter than any of them ever were." We took a group photo. No one stood in the traditional mom, dad, kids wagon format. No one was told where to stand to make it look better. Everyone was free. Everyone smiled genuinely. I printed that photo, framed it in wood, placed it on my bedside shelf, and called it my family. A few weeks later, I got another letter from Mom. I didn't open it. I didn't need to know what she wrote. I didn't need forgiveness. Forgiveness is only necessary when you still have ties to someone. As for me, I'm no longer tied. I don't hate them. I just don't care anymore. People think a story only feels complete when there's a final scene of forgiveness, a hug tears, and a happy reunion. I disagree. I believe a story is complete when you no longer need an ending. When you simply know I'm okay now. I don't need anything more. And I'm proud of myself for not breaking. Family isn't about blood. Family is where you are loved, without having to trade in pieces of yourself to earn it. I'm no longer the little girl kneeling on a cold floor waiting for someone to open the door. Now I live in an apartment I chose myself, with a door I lock and unlock by my own rules, and I only open it for those who deserve to come in. I didn't forgive, I didn't seek revenge, I just walked away. And that was the one thing they never saw coming. Because sometimes silence is the loudest message of all. I don't need you anymore. If you've ever been the unwanted one in your own home, if you've ever had to choose between forgiving to be loved or loving yourself enough to never need forgiveness, then this story is for you. Thank you for staying till the end of the video. If you believe this story deserves to be heard, like this video, subscribe to True Reddit Reads, and comment below if you've ever gone through something similar, because you're not alone.